His ideas have shaped world leaders from Martin Luther King to Nelson Mandela and many others. But not many people know that Gandhi was nominated 5 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, but he never won it. But at least 6 Nobel Peace Prize laureates have cited him as an inspiration for their principles. United Nations has marked today as International Day of Non-Violence and Peace. So on his recent visit to the US, Prime Minister Narendra Modi shared his thoughts on Mahatma Gandhi at a program hosted by India at the United Nations. And so to help us begin this evening, I would like to invite Mr. Harish Kolasani, President of the National Asian Indian Associations, to help us understand how he sees Gandhi's vision and relevance in the various Indian federations today. Mr. Harish Kolasani, welcome.
Namaste. Wow. This is a huge thing for me in my life because the unity that I am part of it, I'm not like doing everything. Right now, in this prestigious venue, we have the representation of over 63 Indian American community organizations, 10 consulates of different countries, our elected officials, and many of the eminent individuals, and many of the universities actually. And all this representation is for one legend, the messenger of peace, non-violence, and truth, the great Mahatma Gandhi. NCIA is a national organization based in Washington, D.C., which was built by the great leaders to build the great community together. And right now, this is what we want to do. And we see all the organizations who are here. Hats off to each and every one of you, all the individuals who are here. Like on a weekday evening, with this kind of weather, you all showed up and you're celebrating a great day. Thank you so much. And with the same support, we are going to do many projects this year, out of which our most important project is Census 2020 for Indian American community, which is very important for the community. And we will definitely reach out to you and take a lot of your help. And we'll work together. That is what NCIA is. It's not an individual organization, it's an organization which is combined with all the other organizations. And thank you so much for that. I now want to welcome our great Consul General, who is the backbone of this program and did a lot of work to make this happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Dalila. I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Kolasani. I wanted to just offer a short introduction to the Consul General. Before I invite him, I just wanted to say that his vision for participation and inclusion of our community is a true reflection.
Mr. Harish Kolasani, President of the NCAIA, Deputy Mayor of Chicago, Mr. Samir Naikar, Cook County Board President, Honorable Tony McMichael, State Senator Ram Gullivalam, Mrs. Smita Shah, Chairperson of the Delhi Committee of the Chicago City International, very eminent members of the Indian American community, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Harish Kolasani, for organizing this special program to celebrate the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi in partnership with the Consulate and various Indian American community organizations. We are proud to have these celebrations at the Fullerton Hall in the iconic Art Institute of Chicago, where Swami Vivekananda addressed the World Parliament of Religion in 1893. Today is indeed a special day as the world celebrates the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's journey to becoming a Mahatma is truly exemplary and have inspired and will continue to inspire successive generations all across the globe. Be it the cause of equal rights, dignity of labor, bringing change through non-violent means, holding our faith in truth and freedom, or showing us the power of simplicity, compassion, and community service. In all his approaches, Mahatma Gandhi kept the interest of ordinary people supreme and focused on their empowerment. As our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi said a few days ago at the United Nations, and I quote, Mahatma Gandhi brought change. It is well known, but it is also fair to say that he awakened the inner strength of the people and awakened them to bring about change. I unquote. Mahatma Gandhi's words, and I quote, "Therefore, my people, I must follow them, for I am their leader," sums up how he became one of the greatest change makers for India and inspired many across the world. While Gandhian philosophy of compassion, humanism, and non-violence has inspired and continues to inspire people across the globe, one of them, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., dared to dream of equality, liberty, and opportunity, and to heal a nation wounded by racial segregation. The spirit of the historic Salt March at Dandi in India resonated in his courageous Montgomery bus boycott. Ladies and gentlemen, in the contemporary world that we live in, Gandhian principles have even more relevance in inspiring individuals wanting to be agents of change. The Gandhian principles have also assumed particular significance as we look for effective ways to deal with mindless violence, extremism, intolerance, or dealing with the effects of climate change and sustainable development, or nurturing diversity, pluralism, and common prosperity. Ladies and gentlemen, today marks his 150th birth anniversary, but significant events have been organized since this day last year. It is a matter of pride that the Chicagoans and our friends from the US, Midwest, have come together in a big way in planning several events and initiatives and sharing the ideals and principles of Mahatma Gandhi with their local communities. I would like to highlight some of this initiative this evening and to also thank everyone for their belief in Gandhian philosophy. I begin by the first event that we had in the consulate 1 year ago on October 2nd, where Dr. Sonti and many others addressed our community about the Gandhian philosophy and his life. We had subsequently earlier this year on June 5th, the World Environment Day, Tree Plantation Day. As you all know, Mahatma Gandhi believed in sustainable development, protection of environment. So we planted a few trees at the beautiful village of Skokie near the statue of Mahatma Gandhi. We had an excellent luncheon organized by Mrs. Pita Shah, the chair of the Delhi committee of the Chicago Sister Cities International, and this was attended by Mayor Lightfoot, and she of course shared with us her reflection on Gandhian philosophy and his ideas. We also had Senator Durbin speak at the special luncheon, where he again sort of underlined the importance of Gandhian philosophy and ideas in today's world. And we were delighted to have both Mayor Lightfoot and Senator Durbin at a special occasion a few days back in Chicago. We also had Mayor Lightfoot sort of pass the proclamation declaring today, October 2nd, as the Mahatma Gandhi Day in Chicago, and we are grateful to Mayor of Chicago for her support and belief. We had also a special exhibition in St. Louis, Mahatma Gandhi Center. I, in the consulate, look after 9 in Western states, so I must talk about my jurisdiction. And I have some colleagues and friends from St. Louis today present here, and I would like to thank them for celebrating Gandhiji in St. Louis in a big way. Again this morning we went again to the village of Skokie. It is a place where we have the statue of Mahatma Gandhi, and we celebrated this beautiful day and paid our respects to Mahatma Gandhi at the statue of Mahatma Gandhi in the village of Skokie with the mayor of Skokie. I also learned that in the morning today, the Indian American Advisory Board for Aurora partnered with the city, and they did a good program on Gandhiji's philosophy with young leaders, students. And I'm really grateful to the city of Aurora and our members in the community who came together to do this event in the morning today. I picked up this photograph from the Facebook of one of my friends, Ms. Sally Joshi today. We also had an art competition on Gandhiji's philosophy, and I'm just showing you very few sort of artwork that we have received, and we hope to recognize some of these artists. Some of them are very young, and display their paintings and artworks in the consulate. And I'm very happy that many people and young students participated in this art competition.
For all the influence that Gandhi had on the millions of lives here in our nation and in our city, including on my own, his impact grows exponentially when measured around the world. This profoundly simple yet extraordinary man helped shepherd humanity into the modern global age. And I actually had the honor in 2011 to accompany President Obama on his visit to Mani Bhavan in Mumbai. And as many of you know, that was Gandhiji's headquarters in Mumbai for almost 2 decades. And he was the first Western leader to visit Mani Bhavan in 50 years, and the previous was Dr. King. And when you think about that arc, from Gandhiji to Dr. King to President Obama to where we are today, the fact is that Gandhi's message of peace, justice, and change through nonviolence, it resonates today, and it is needed today more so than ever. Just think about his ripples in history. And the fact that this room is full of over 400 people, it confirms this. His wise words transcend decades and generations, and his impact continues to inspire us and me personally each and every day. One quote in particular stands out to me on this particular occasion: "The future depends on what you do today." We are standing at a historic moment in our history, as a nation, as a city, and as citizens. Let us use this occasion to strive to live up to Gandhiji's message and examples of leadership, courage, and empowerment. It will take all of us, businesses, community organizations, government, and more, to work together to support our city and support each other, and create a future that we can be proud of, that Gandhiji would be proud of. Events like this, communities like all of us here, they're critical to bringing people together and lifting up across every neighborhood in the city, to do their best, to do our best. The challenges we face may be high, but the opportunities we hold are truly limitless. When we support our neighbors, we not only support Gandhi's profound legacy, but we strengthen it. And in honor of today, as the Consul General had mentioned, we have a proclamation from the Mayor dedicating today as Mahatma Gandhi Day in Chicago.
Now, through most of the past centuries, Indians and African Americans supported each other's struggles because we identify with each other's predicaments and principles. While born and raised in India, Gandhi first struggled for social justice in South Africa, where he protested peacefully against discrimination against Asians as well as Africans. Returning to India in 1914, he developed the doctrine of Satyagraha, non-violent resistance to evil. And this watchword has been translated as truth force, love force, and in a phrase made famous by the US Civil Rights Movement, soul force. And here to give resonance to these ideas of Gandhi is our Cook County Board President, Ms.
On behalf of the people of Cook County, I want to bring greetings this evening, and Consul General Dalila, we're very grateful for your leadership and your representation of India here in Chicago and in this region. Some of you may know that while I am president of the Cook County Board of Commissioners, I started my working life as a teacher. I spent 10 years teaching high school history. I taught a little bit of world history, mostly American history, but a little bit of world history. And if you look at world history in the 20th century, clearly one of the most transformative events was the end of European colonialism in Asia, in Africa, across the world. And surely one of the leaders in that effort to end European colonialism and oppression was Mahatma Gandhi. And he was a champion not only of independence and self-empowerment in India, but also around the world. And for my tribe, Martin Luther King went to Mumbai and visited the home of Mahatma Gandhi. And he and Barrett Rustin, who was also a leader in the American Civil Rights Movement, took heart from the Indian efforts to gain independence and their struggle based on nonviolence, and took that message of the importance of nonviolence resistance to oppression to America for our own civil rights movement here at home. So I'm grateful to Gandhi for his national and international leadership in bringing independence, of course, to India, to the Indian subcontinent, but also for the fact that he was a model, he was a champion of nonviolent resistance around the world. And people like Martin Luther King and Barrett Rustin looked to him as a model, as a leader, as a guide in their own efforts to achieve equality here at home. So I want to thank Gandhi and the Indian people for the ways in which they inspired our own racial revolution here at home. Thank you.
Another elected representative and Illinois State Senator from the 8th District, Mr. Ram Vilivalam. I do also want to add that there is an amazing program that will follow. So please do bear with us, and we look forward to having you enjoy the program.
My name is Ram Vilivalam. I'm the State Senator for the 8th District in the state of Illinois, which encompasses about 21 neighborhoods in the city of Chicago: Lincolnwood, Skokie, Niles, Portland Grove, Glenview, and unincorporated Des Plaines. As you can tell, my last name is Vilivalam, which means it's the million. My mother's maiden name is Mazumdar. I don't speak Tamilian or Bengali. We're actually originally from Andhra Pradesh, so I speak Telugu and understand Kannada. So I just want to put that out there before people start talking to me today. And it's an honor for me to be here. It's an honor for me to serve in the Illinois State Senate. I'm the first Asian American elected to the Illinois State Senate, first Asian American. First Indian American elected to the Illinois General Assembly, and I, with many of the folks in this room, was able to accomplish that goal. And it's a source of pride for me, it's a source of honor, it's a source of great responsibility. And I stand before you today, as I thought about this day, about this year, and we look at the life of Mahatma Gandhi and celebrate his 150th birthday anniversary. We often talk about his ability to influence millions and millions of people across the globe as it relates to his message of nonviolence, his message of peace, justice, and so forth. I'm here today to also include the fact that he brought people together like no other person in our entire history. He was able to bring people together under one movement and make sure that they were all fighting and rowing in the same direction. And I bring that up because I actually use that principle that he has so championed in the work I do in Springfield. As you can imagine, I'm the only person that looks like me in Springfield, in the Illinois State Legislature. So it is my responsibility, my task, to, when I'm trying to pass legislation, when I'm trying to move the ball forward for our community, to talk to each of my colleagues who are from different ethnicities, different countries, different backgrounds, and explain to them why these items are important to our community. And it's because of Mahatma Gandhi's principle of bringing that many people together under one movement. I am able to think about even doing that. And so with that, I would say thank you so much to the Council General, to Mr. Bush, as well, for putting this together, because this is emblematic of what we need to be moving forward. We obviously are going to be able to celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's 150th anniversary this month, but I encourage everyone, let's not make it just about this month, let's make it about every month, every day, every year, because as time goes on, we're facing more and more challenges, and we all need to be reminded of the messages and principles of Gandhiji. So with that, I just wanted to, I have a proclamation for the Illinois State Senate, so on behalf of Illinois State Senate President John Cullerton, and my colleagues. Let it be known that today is proclaimed by the Senate of the 101st General Assembly of the State of Illinois that we celebrate Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, October 2nd, 2019, as the State Day of Peace and Nonviolence to coincide with the International Day of Nonviolence, and be it further proclaimed that we encourage people in the state of Illinois to observe the State Day of Peace and Nonviolence with appropriate ceremonies, programs, and activities.
Ladies and gentlemen, I was actually about to leave. But another event at no profit I need to be at. But thank you so much, Consul General, for including me, a small guy, in front of so many big people here. But I wasn't expecting this, and I actually told Consul General I may not be able to make it, but I was able to clean up my schedule so that I could spend a few minutes here at least. So on behalf of the Village of Oak Grove, I appreciate the courtesy that has been given, and on behalf of the residents, I wish 150th ceremonies that are going on today best wishes and congratulations, and we are all with you. Thank you so much.
Mayor of Oak Grove, thank you so much for addressing us and saying that. We're honored by your presence. Martin Luther King was deeply influenced by Gandhi, as we have heard during the course of the evening. But there is a special reference to the way he talked about India and Gandhi that I'd like to share. On the eve of his departure to India, he said, "To other countries, I may go as a tourist, but to India, I come as a pilgrim. If this age is to survive, it must follow the way of love and non-violence that Gandhi so nobly illustrated in his life." And now we segue into a beautiful program that the consulate has prepared for us this evening. And in the language of Gandhiji's language, there was humanity and there was also a song in his heart. And you know what I allude to, his famous song, Bhajan Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram. We are thrilled to present a music and dance ensemble on Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan by the Natya Dance Theatre and by the Surabhi Ensemble.
Brahma Vishnu
following from this is another very dear bhajan favored by Mahatma Gandhi. And that one, to commemorate Mahatma Gandhi on his 150th birth anniversary, when artists from 124 countries recreated Vaishnava Janatu, written by the 15th century poet Narsingh Mehta in Gujarati language. We had the performer we have participating today participate in that iconic imagery. Her name is Anita Lerch, and before I talk to you a little bit more about Anita, I wanted to tell you a little bit about what Vaishnav Janatu alludes to. A larger humanity and people who feel the pain of others, help those in misery, but never let conceit enter their mind. They have forsaken greed and deceit. They stay afar from lust and anger. So welcome Anita Lerch, who is an Indiana resident, who is part of this video collaboration of Gandhiji's favorite bhajan. Vaishnava Janatu Tere Kariye Peeda Karaye Jane Vaishnava Janatu Tere Kariye Peeda Karaye Jane Thank you. Kalerke from Indiana with that soul-stirring rendition of Vaishnav Janata. Today, more than ever, non-violence can be a force, a catalyst for social change. And our youth will be this catalyst. And so to represent the youth, our future generation, we are delighted to have students from IIT Chicago talking about their interpretation of Mahatma Gandhi. We have Eric Scott, Wafai Ukit Iva, and Amanda Sathyaraj.
This portrait had a description of the life and teachings of Gandhi. But along the years, I've come to realize that these teachings brought me great pain, agony, sometimes anger, but fulfillment. My name is Wafai Iwa. I'm a Nigerian student at the Illinois Institute of Technology. I'm the president of the International Student Organization, and I'm a human being whose perspective on life and people was greatly influenced by not just the teachings, but the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi often said that truth is God. The path to any kind of success can only be paved by truthfulness. So being truthful, our climate is deteriorating. At this rate, we won't leave a suitable environment for our children. If we're being truthful, there's Muslims in concentration camps in China being denied their fundamental rights. Some of us might think that these problems don't affect us, but as my role model, Martin Luther King Jr. said, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I'm sure we've all heard of Gandhi's teaching, social justice, equality, cleanliness, education, and many more things. As we celebrate the life of Gandhi today, let us remind ourselves that respecting his teachings and remembering his life is not enough. That is not enough. We must also respect him enough to apply these teachings into our lives. As someone who, for some time in my life, I've been self-centered, I've been uncommitted, my greatest challenge was the excruciating journey of living a life for others. A life that can change things for not just myself. I'm currently working towards 2 degrees at IIT. If my degrees cannot be used to help people, they're worthless. Another quote from MLK goes, "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right?" As we respect Mahatma Gandhi enough to remember his life today.
My name is Eric Scott. I am the student president at the Illinois Institute of Technology. In 1919, 100 years ago, a man wrote, "Victory attained by violence is tantamount to a defeat, for it is momentary." Such a statement hasn't always held true. History has long been defined by sovereigns and monarchs who ground their armies against one another over slivers of territory that weren't even theirs. As little as a century ago, there existed a world where blood was as much a currency as gold and silver. But then, 150 years ago today, came the author of those words. A man that did more to help end that cycle than perhaps any other. Mahatma Gandhi became the champion of a new and far more civilized tradition of how leaders should act. He gave the world an example of guidance rather than of conquest, and of success without resorting to cruelty or violence. He set a higher standard for the next generation of leaders across the world. He taught us to be courteous and respectful, but not irresolute. To understand our own fallibility, knowing that bullishness is a road to violence. And that we could no longer and should no longer wander the earth taking what isn't ours without regard for the lives and dignity of anyone unlucky enough to get in the way. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. credited Gandhi directly for inspiring him to nonviolent action that could be, quote, a powerful and effective social force on a large scale. He wasn't shy about saying what his people wanted and needed, but he demonstrated again and again the effectiveness of demanding without coercion, which, as Gandhi said, cannot but result in chaos in the end. The accomplishments of leaders around the world became possible due to the great wave of wisdom, responsibility, and higher civilization spearheaded by Gandhi and others like him. It is sad then that just a few short decades later, the world feels like it's back on the brink. Perhaps because we are on the edge of forgetting these values and how they made the world a better place for so long. Gandhi said, "It is unwise to be too sure of one's own wisdom. It is healthy to be reminded that the strongest might be and that the wisest might err." There is still time to remember and to follow in his footsteps to a place of care, of love, and ultimately to the quiet center where peace and truth is strength. That path is his legacy.
I'm Madam Satyaraj, the president of the Indian Student Association at Illinois Tech in Chicago. It is a true honor for me to be here today amidst all of you. Mahatma Gandhi truly believed in the strength of oneness that is brought about by diversity. He believed in the equality of human beings regardless of their birth and status, not only in India, but all across the globe, without any discrimination whatsoever based on race, complexion, religion, and faith. The Mahatma stood and toiled for the upliftment of the poor, the exploited, the oppressed, and the underprivileged. In fact, he took it upon himself as his mission. His quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world," strikes a chord with me as we witness climate strikes movements led by Greta Thunberg. I believe that we can make an impact on the world and the way that people see us way more than we can imagine. We come in contact with so many people every day, and our actions do have a ripple effect, and they do change the world a little. It is up to us how we want to change the world. It is either for the better or the worse. In the present day world, where there is divisiveness and hatred on account of status, language, race, and faith, the message of the Mahatma of equality, strength, and diversity is the only way for the redemption of humanity.
Payo
शांतिपूर्वक आंदोलन और सत्याग्रह ने हमें एक नई राह दिखाई। जनमानस के दिलों में अहिंसावादी विचारधारा जग गई। धन्य है वह भारत जिसकी मिट्टी में जन्मा ऐसा धर्म। जून 1813 में दक्षिण अफ्रीका का एक मुकदमा लड़ने के लिए गांधी जी ने प्रिटोरिया के लिए ट्रेन पकड़ी। उनके पास फर्स्ट क्लास टिकट होने के बावजूद अश्वेत होने की वजह से उन्हें ट्रेन से धक्का देकर प्लेटफॉर्म पर फेंक दिया गया।
मेरे पास ये टिकट है, फर्स्ट क्लास टिकट। ये तुम्हें कहाँ से मिला? मिला नहीं, मैंने खरीद लिया। मैं एक लॉयर हूँ, इधर एक केस करने के लिए आया। यहाँ पे कोई काला वकील लेके जाओ, थर्ड क्लास पे जाओ। थर्ड क्लास? नहीं जाओ। सुमन, ऐसे है।
सारी रात वो यही सोचते रहे कि क्या उन्हें छूट जाना चाहिए, भारत वापस लौट जाना चाहिए या फिर भारतीयों पर हो रहे अन्याय के खिलाफ संघर्ष करना चाहिए। गांधी तब न महात्मा थे न राष्ट्रपिता, वो तब सिर्फ एक बैरिस्टर थे, लेकिन ट्रेन में हुई इस घटना ने उन्हें महात्मा बनने के रास्ते पर चला दिया। 7 जून 1813 में की उस रात दक्षिण अफ्रीका के पीटरमार्टिसबर्ग में गांधी के सत्याग्रह की नींव पड़ चुकी थी। गांधी को नहीं पता था कि उनका यही हथियार कभी भारत की आजादी का रास्ता भी खोलेगा।
हमें भेदभाव का मिटा नहीं होगा।
हमें अपना हक हासिल करना होगा। एक सभ्य समाज में किसी व्यक्ति की पहचान उसके रंग से नहीं होती।
वंदे मेधादम वंदे मातरम, वंदे मेधादम वंदे मातरम।
घटना उनके जीवन में एक नई सोच लेकर आई और प्रस्थान बिंदु साबित हुई। 1893 से लेकर 1914 तक महात्मा गांधी दक्षिण अफ्रीका में नागरिक अधिकारों के लिए आंदोलन करते रहे। 1915 में महात्मा गांधी भारत लौटे और फिर आजादी का जो आंदोलन उन्होंने चलाया उसी ने हमें अंग्रेजों से आजाद कराया। वैसे दोस्तों, आजादी की राह इतनी भी आसान न थी। देश लौट के गांधी जी स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन में डूब। उन दिनों पूरा भारत गुलामी की आग में जल रहा, जगह जगह आंदोलन। इन्हीं दिनों में भारतीय स्वतंत्रता के इतिहास की सबसे बर्बाद आज से पूरे 100 साल पहले।
बापू, बापू जलियांवाला बाग हत्याकांड के बाद लोगों में बहुत गुस्सा है।
जगह जगह आग जलने की खबरें आ रही है।
हाँ बाबू, हमें क्या करना चाहिए?
मेरा मन बहुत दुखी है। सोचता हूँ इससे ज्यादा क्रूरता और निर्दयता क्या किसी ने अपने सपने में भी सोची होगी। ये जरूरी तो नहीं कि हम उनकी प्रत्याकरण की चुप्पी को हिंसावादी हिसाबों से जवाब दें। हमें हिंसावादी आंदोलन नहीं करना चाहिए।
इस बीच आया वह 4 फरवरी 1922 चोरी चोरा कांड। ये इतिहास की वो घटना थी जिसने महात्मा गांधी को इस कदर परेशान कर दिया था कि उन्होंने अपना असहयोग आंदोलन वापस लेने का फैसला किया।
बापू, हमारा असहयोग आंदोलन वापस लेने का निर्णय भविष्य को देखते हुए क्या सही है? हाँ बापू, अगर हम ईद का जवाब ईद से नहीं देंगे तो लोग हमें कमजोर समझेंगे। हाँ बापू,
ताकत शारीरिक शक्ति से नहीं आती, यह तो अदम्य इच्छा शक्ति से आती है। ये जो परिस्थितियां उत्पन्न हो रही है ये हमारी साहस और दृढ़ता की परीक्षा लेगी। ऐसे में आप सबको सूझबूझ से काम लेना होगा।
मगर बापू, हमारे भविष्य का क्या? कुछ
में क्या होगा वो मैं अभी सोचना नहीं चाहता। मुझे तो वर्तमान की चिंता है कि हम अपने सपने में भी ऐसे देश की परिकल्पना कर सकते हैं जहां आजाद होने के बाद भी हमें अपनों से ही डर बना रहे।
बापू, आप ही हमें रास्ता बताएं। हमें क्या करना चाहिए? हमें क्या करना चाहिए?
हमें हमेशा पवित्र और न्याय संगत रास्ता अपनाना चाहिए। मैंने जिस लोकतंत्र की परिकल्पना की है उसमें उसकी स्थापना हम अहिंसा से करेंगे, जिसमें सभी को समान स्वतंत्रता मिलेगी।
1917 का चंपारण आंदोलन भारत का पहला नागरिक अवज्ञा आंदोलन था। आंदोलन का मुख्य केंद्र चंपारण की नीम की खेती करने वाले किसानों की दुर्दशा इस आंदोलन में किसानों को संगठित होकर आत्मनिर्भर बनाना और शिक्षा के मार्ग पर चलने के लिए भी प्रेरित किया। खेड़ा सत्याग्रह 1918 सन 1918 में गुजरात की खेड़ा जिले में भयंकर अकाल पड़ा। ऐसे में लगान देने में असमर्थ किसानों की मदद के लिए गांधी जी आ गए। सबके साथ मिलकर सत्याग्रह और अंत में किसानों की जीत हुई। रोलेट एक्ट का विरोध 1919 अप्रैल 1919 रोलेट एक्ट के विरोध में गांधी ने आवाज उठाई। हड़ताल उपवास में इस हड़ताल आंदोलन को रोलेट सत्याग्रह भी कहा। असहयोग आंदोलन सितंबर 1920 से फरवरी 1922। असहयोग आंदोलन गांधी जी के नेतृत्व में चलाया जाने वाला यह प्रथम जन आंदोलन था, जिसने भारतीय स्वतंत्रता आंदोलन को एक नई जागरूकता दी। असहयोग मतलब सही नहीं, यानी कि वर्तमान स्थिति के खिलाफ सविनय अवज्ञा आंदोलन 12 मार्च 1930 गांधी जी ने अपने 79 कार्यकर्ताओं के साबरमती आश्रम के समुद्र तट पर 200 मील की यात्रा पैदल चलकर 24 दिन में पूरी हुई। मार्ग में गांधी जी ने लोगों को बलिदान और अहिंसा का उपदेश दिया। दांडी यात्रा मार्च 1930। दांडी यात्रा यानी नमक सत्याग्रह। महात्मा गांधी ने साबरमती आश्रम से दांडी गांव तक पैदल मार्च किया। दांडी मार्च करने वाले लोगों के हाथों में एक भी तख्ती या झंडा नहीं था। सत्याग्रही 240 मील लंबी यात्रा करके 24 दिनों बाद दांडी पहुंचे। यहाँ पर सार्वजनिक रूप से नमक बनाकर उन्होंने नमक कानून तोड़ा।
Request and thanks for our honorable Savada Kalaraji so put together such a historical event. I'm feeling, believe it or not, that this is the place which is very pronounced, very honorable place because of our Vivekananda has delivered the first lecture here. That was such a wonderful. We are so lucky, and we are doing 150th birthday of Gandhiji in this hall. This is all because of his work, and definitely I want to thank Harish Kurasani also, the NCAA, putting together, and all his team behind the scene, and all the organizations who are working so hard behind this, which you don't know. The sponsor is definitely our Consul General Office. The diamond sponsorship by Usha, by MFS. And the bronze is by many organizations like the Charity Law Firm, IMA, EMA, and GSA. They are all there. So I want, and all other organizations. This kind of organization, this kind of event cannot be done without the help of the community and by all organizations. As Harish said, that NCEIA object and purpose is not to have a hold of any organization. We want to promote all the organizations, whatever they are doing in their field, whatever in field they are. If you are political field, welcome. If you are artistic, welcome. If you are doing community service, welcome. And I will further say in a more emphatic way, in this time we have to include ourselves in the census. Without census inclusion, we cannot have any program demand for our community. Our number has to be raised. We are very, very secularized. We are very, very not understand that we have to be included in the census. So please, if you are a community leader in your group, wherever you are, increase this awareness and we will register all the people so that we can have a program in this country. Without that, it's not possible. And I would like to take this opportunity to invite you for a MAFS, which the results have shown. We are doing a function on 12th of October. We are also celebrating or commemorating 150th birthday of Gandhiji. Gandhiji has personally influenced me very much. It's my personal story, but I will give you a bit so that many people may be inspired by that. When I was a child, I used to go library with my father. And I read all the biographies of the great heroes. And the most biography which touched me, Mahatma Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln. And you know, I was supposed to be doctor. I was admitted in the medical school and I didn't want to go there. Because my heroes were the Gandhi and Abraham Lincoln. I thought I should do legal profession and law so that I can fight against the injustice. Because for my understanding, I cannot see any injustice anywhere. And instead, I had to do 3-day book hardal. I couldn't get the food because my parents wanted me to go to medical, which is very hard to get admission, which I got already. But then I won, so I did my legal studies from LLB and both, and I started practice and we want to leave it. Because of his principle of not tolerating any injustice or any impurity of anybody. So I fought for the payment of our bride burning. Even in the Rajasthan, because so much bride burning was there. So we fought for that, include the law to arrest the father-in-law, mother-in-law, and the brother-in-laws. So that was the fight which we did for the women and for Muslim women. Because they are not included in an element because of the Sharia law. So we fought for that and made section 125 CRPC, which you not understand maybe because not law, to include them to provide an element for their basic need. Because they are left alone with the children, nothing whatsoever. And it was surprised when I came here that I found the people come here to become very influential, very rich, and the story is entirely opposite. And they are suffering, our educated people are suffering. Because they came as officers, but their education not recognized here. They are driving taxis here, which was very painful to me. My husband has a business, many doctors were doing just a packaging job, which was so much hurting to me. I personally sent them for a medical school again, and for their residency. My husband, I did that. And then I found our seniors are suffering so much. The parents which we have given so much for us. So that Gandhiji has influenced me so much that if you are determined to do anything for a good of the society, you can do it. So that is my personal tribute to Gandhiji. And definitely you all have learned today or know already, but the depiction is really touching. The depiction which Monday Theatre has done was so touching. What has happened, he was thrown out completely from the train. It is such an insult for MRP was so much relevant at that time in Africa. So what we can learn from here, just to be very simple, peaceful, truthful, and with honesty. We should live life with that. And my thanks to all of you, all the dignitaries are here, all the people are here, our friends are here, to be very thankful that you have attend this function, and I hope some children have done such a beautiful job. Okay, what Gandhiji means to them. So Gandhi is a very greatly needed right now for peace, for love, for care, honesty, and dignity of the labor. Thank you so much, and I want to invite you for my function, which I am doing celebration on 12th of October. We are really doing a very special way. We have got all the beautiful things of Gandhi. And I think my international leader must be here, Dr. Vijay Prabhakar. We have chosen 20 icons, global icon. In in their respective field, wherever they are. I will love to pronounce some name here so that you know that Anna Hazare, we have chosen, she had from India. We have chosen for that. Dr. Parvesh Hayat, the DGP of Police of Delhi, we have chosen. Dr. Lalita Kumar Mangalam, the Director of the India Foundation, she is coming also, we have chosen. And our own esteemed Dr. Bharat Parag, we have chosen. And our Vijay Shari, we have chosen. And Dr. Rainan Kotar, the Chancellor of a Houston University, we have chosen. And Dr. Renu Kotar from Michigan, as the President of Michigan University, we have chosen. So these are the few names. There are 20 more. So please come and join and enjoy the 150 birthday ceremony or centenary of the Gandhiji and MFS. MFS delegate, very unique work, which some of them you know, sometimes you know that there. And thank you again Dr. Durga, for having such a beautiful function and Hari. And I cannot go without giving a birthday wish for Harish. It is important today. Two great leaders we share the birthday, Gandhiji and Lal Bahadur Shastri.